Welcome to today's show. Today I have with me Jacinta Dowsing from the Dowsing Group, and we're going to be talking about her journey and her family's journey through family business. I'm John Bruns, the family business guy, and welcome to our show. Jacinta, welcome. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are interested to find out a little bit about your journey in the business, what it does, and how you got here to sit across from me today.
I'll give you the short version. Obviously today we're a bit limited, but it's been a roller coaster, definitely. And really, if it wasn't for Carl Dowsing, my husband, we wouldn't even have a company. He started as a concreter. That was the beginning of our journey. I met him in 1985, and he was concreting then, working really hard. But of course, we never ever dreamed we would come to this place where we are today.
And today it's a large organisation with how many employees?
It fluctuates because we do have a lot of casual employees, but I think it sits around 80 to 100 employees.
80 to 100 employees. And you're in just in Western Australia?
No, I haven't seen you since the big breaking news. I don't think we've actually branched over into New South Wales. That's how.
So the business is still growing, and you've now incorporated a New South Wales division to the business. So starting off with your husband being a concreter, and to get to a business that employs 60 to 80 people, tell me something about the journey to get to here.
You know, it's happened mostly in probably the last 25 years, 20 years. The first part of our marriage, which is really, like our business is a marriage too. If we couldn't really be where we are today, I don't think if it wasn't for both of us. Like I think, you know, it's like this wonderful love affair really, that we wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for Carl, and Carl wouldn't be who he is today if it wasn't for Jacinta. So I think that the whole synergy there is we had different strengths. We had similar values, and definitely very aligned with our morals and our focus for customer service and people, but we had different gifts.
So the values and the strengths, you worked together, the two of you. It started off small. Did you work from home?
Initially, it covered everything. And we had children fairly young, so I was really full-time mum, had 4 young children, and he managed to do all the site work and all the invoicing, which was pretty limited back then. It was basically write out an invoice on it as a, they didn't call it ABN then, we were called Prescribed Payment System. That was the subcontracting world that we're in. And then in about 1995, we got our first local government contract. And that, when we look at our time, you know, our number line of our business, it's that was the start of the big new current life that we have.
So
and how Dowsing evolved.
1995 was the start of the Dowsing Group.
Well, I guess in the specialty, Carl had already been working a lot in footpaths, which is what we became very well known for, and I believe the leading footpath contractor in the greater metropolitan area of Perth. And Carl had, because he'd specialised in that as a concreter, it's sort of looked upon as the real basic, you know, not very pretty part of concreting. And of course he could do all facets of concreting, but he really had this gift with paths and being able to lay them very quickly, very swiftly and very well, because there's a lot of finish involved, a lot of, you know, for the look and obviously compliance. So our first contract in our name, which I think back then was probably our partnership with CQ and JM Dowsing. I don't think we weren't even a proprietary limited company, I don't think, in 1995, yeah. So, and then it grew from there. So we became really big contract to the local sector, which today we're doing a lot of first tier jobs. It's a big difference in.
So the local government gave you the start, basically. It gave you consistency, and it gave you not just consistency, but almost guaranteed, because you had a contract with them, an agreement with them to do the work. So you grew from that. How many people, say, after the first couple of years would you have been?
Oh, to answer your question, because our office at home, so of course the office requirement became needed, and.
So you did start at home?
Yes, we did. So I got the children there and got one of the rooms downstairs there converted to an office, and it was great. And it got a little bit hairy when you bring people there to interview them as we grew and grew, and we sort of got to probably 10, 15 employees, and I would be interviewing them. I was obviously everything. I was admin. I mean, I didn't even know how to use a computer. I think we didn't use computers at school. When you did physics and chemistry and economics, we just wrote a lot of work. So I didn't really actually know how to even turn a computer on in probably 1998, I think, or 97, I can't remember. I went to TAFE and learnt. I thought, well, he's out there working hard. I've got to do this side of it. And I had to start, being able to write up quotes, and the contracting administration wasn't that large. It did change a lot around 2000, so there was a big need there, and I was able to adapt, which was great. And I think we did a very good job of being able to represent ourselves. But we went very quickly through that phase of sort of like 2 to 3, that you get there and then suddenly you're 5, then you're 10. And then we went to 0 for a little bit. That was pretty tough. And it was like, okay, this is the fork in the road, we all get them. And Carl thought seriously about not going back to concreting in that period. And I said to him, this is what you're good at.
So was that challenge the GFC? What was
No,
that?
it was prior to that, but it was more of the situation where we were subcontracting to a very big contractor, and it's that sort of story where you do 90% of your income from
one.
10%, yeah. And we just talked about this last night as a family, actually, and how it's not a good move. And we would never get ourselves in that position again after that situation. But we wouldn't be where we are today if that hadn't happened to us. So it's a bit of a nice...
Well, it's lessons learned, but it's also how then you respond to those lessons when they come towards you. So you and Carl made the choice and you went back into it.
Well, basically, I just said, we've got to get big or get out.
Okay.
And get big meant, a lot of... back then it was occupational safety health, OSH, compliance and learning and procedures and policies. So that was the start of, in an industry where that wasn't really something that was natural. Guys still wore shorts and thongs and drank beer after work on site. So there was a lot of changes there, and Carl embraced it. The boys challenged us a bit, I guess, but I wanted us to become known. We did a business plan, I think it was 2002, and I can remember stating in that business plan, I wanted to be the employer in Perth where the guys would line up at the gate to want to come and work for us. And we did make a very big point of difference. I remember uniforms weren't something that was standard across our industry. I used to wash their uniforms and actually take them down to the yard every morning and give them all clean uniforms. We'd rented a premises down away from our home, obviously, because all our equipment was getting too much for our little residential street. They were very tolerant, our neighbours, and which was lovely. And I think that's the nice thing, when people see you doing well, I'm talking about a community here. They actually supported us. They didn't hurt. Like we could have had complaints from neighbours about trucks starting up. When they beep at 5:30 in the morning, and we're the youngest people in that street. It was quite an old area, and
and you would have had everybody coming to start work at your home, and then go out to the jobs through the day from that one spot.
Yes.
So and then at the end of the day, they'd all come back to pick up their cars and leave again. And
so our children were very much a part of that, which is good and bad in that too. They saw a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, and they wouldn't come into our home often, but they were still in the yard or close by, and it was good. I think it was good on a lot of fronts. And then eventually the yard, our first yard, we leased it away from home, and I still stayed at home with the office. And then I could see we'd grown out of that. And it's funny the things you do, and I just remembered as I'm speaking to you, I used to take the children to school and just go straight from the school drop-off out and just search. I knew this area I wanted to get our premises in, over in Welshpool, and I just drive around the streets and look for a place that looked run down, and sure enough, I found one. And when I rang the owner, they were just about to send out their listing that day. I said, mate, hold your paperwork, I'm coming in to sign it up. So that was our first yard in Welshpool, and we built a big premises over there, and eventually that was where my first office was. Okay, so you moved the office in, you've got administration, you've got contracts that you're reviewing and tenders you're putting forward now, and you've grown substantially from just you and your husband to now employing, I'm guessing, probably 15 or 20 people. Yes, and getting a basis. At what point did the kids start to come into the business? Bowden, our oldest boy, was at university, and the second boy was in. He was working. He's very like his dad, and he had started on the sites, which was not planned at all. Just sort of came about that he chose to do that for a small period of time, but became so good at it. We didn't really want to let him go, and he was enjoying it. And then the period that was after the GFC, we actually grew through that period. We didn't decline like most people. I think the funding was released and budgets were bigger, and so the demand on us was actually greater. And Carl had a period there where he was really, really exhausted. We didn't know any of this was going to happen. So we worked so hard. One of our values is be courageous, have a crack, and I really have testament to that value, because the courage that he showed, and look, I backed him. I sometimes bluffed my way through too, because as you do, that's the challenge, your husband and wife, and you're both directors there, pushing along. But I thought, we asked our children at sort of 19 and 17 about secession. That doesn't normally really happen. They'll put on the mat. Like, Dad wanted to get out, and it was a very profitable business, but I knew the systems weren't there that were making it a good viable option for a buyer. So I said to Carl, I really don't think we can sell. And I said, well, let's ask the children what they want to do. Like, meaning, do you want to hang on? As in, you go have some time off. And I remember we sat in the front veranda. The two younger boys were still at school. They didn't get invited into the conversation. But the two older ones did, and they both said, no, we definitely want to keep the business. Bowden was studying commerce. And Caleb, our second son, actually, his words were, I wouldn't even go to work every day if it wasn't our name on the front door. But he wanted to be a carpenter. He didn't actually want to be a concreter. So that really motivated me. And look, that was in, what's Bowden 32, so that, we're talking a substantial period of time there, and we're just now moving our shareholding, like the ownership over. We've actually assessed the business, but we're now moving the ownership. So it's taken a long time and quite a few different consultants through there.
It's not a short, sharp, oh look, here's the keys, see you later, and everything's going to happen in that moment. So there's planning happened here. So that was 2012, did you say?
Couldn't have been 12, but he's both 32, and he was 19, so we're 13 years ago.
13 years ago.
It's longer ago than that.
So about 2007. So here we are, the first family business conversation that you had. So this is Mum and Dad and the two older boys. And they've given you a focus. So to get you to today, where you're now handing over the keys in different parts, different steps, was there a particular plan you followed, or you just knew that the boys wanted to carry it on, you're going to keep going?
It's evolved. I think Carl and I both came from very humble families. Like, we were being provided nothing. We even paid for our own wedding. There was just not money around. My parents are farmers. They did really well to educate all their children at private schools here in Perth. We went to boarding school, so that was my greatest gift. And Carl also is from the country. Went to boarding school. So as we came along that journey, we took nothing for granted, and I really didn't want our children to be given something for nothing. I'm a big policy believer that something for nothing's never really appreciated. So, and I'm probably tougher like that than Carl, to be honest. He's very much the fun-loving, easy guy of our family. And I think he used to say to me that Mum, he gives them what they want, Mum gets them what they need, or something like that when we used to go shopping. So we did make, and he agreed with me about that. So we didn't really know how we would do that, and our structure wasn't set up well enough to be able to just transfer it seamlessly. So we had to go through a lot of changes there in our corporate structure. KPMG have helped us immensely with that, and when we came into being part of FBA. So that was, the different advisors we've had through there, what that looked like in 2007 after that conversation. And look, the kids were too little to really understand it. Even I remember our youngest son, who's now 23, saying to me one morning in the kitchen, this is such a real comment from a family, from a son, and he's smart, he's a good kid, he's smart, and he's like, Mum, by the time I get to finish school and finish uni and get in the business, there's going to be none left for me. Like, what am I going to be able to inherit? I'm like, don't worry, Dad's thought about that. We're going to cap everyone's shares. And so that was our first plan, that they would all be offered equivalent opportunity for the share. Now, and we were going to be remaining as an owner, but we've decided we actually won't. We'll stay in there, and there'll be a process for us to taper out, but we will eventually be totally out. The boys will own the whole company.
So here we are, and you've agreed on the succession, and there's a whole decision process about stepping away from the business for you, but also there's the young generation stepping up. The advisors, we were having a conversation earlier about advisors, different advisors you've had in the journey. So can you talk a little bit about that?
The very first person who we really learnt a lot from was Steve Down. He was our leader of our board of management, and he was an accountant as well, who acted with us, and that was really taught us a lot. He was overseeing what was our first proposal of our succession plan, and it hit bumps, and it wasn't really going to happen. And it was when the boys turned 25 was going to be the trigger, and then we met a beautiful lady called Agnes Vacker at KPMG, and it was like the ocean opened, or the Red Sea opened to really welcome us in there, and FBA throughout it, and then actually FBA after that, well, similar time anyway, because they're pretty synergetic. So, and so we did start to move a lot of things through, but the big game changer, Carl and I had done a lot of work with the boys, our sons, and I have a lot of admiration for a global man called Tony Robbins, and we've been to some events of his, and we came back and I said to Carl, because we're such a big people company, and we both love people generally, particularly love our staff, and with concreting, they work hard, and I'm not really sure how, there was something missing in all that succession, and the boys being younger, there was a big gap in, I felt, maturity. So Carl was ready to go, he went first, and I'm still very critical in the business, and we had to reduce that criticalness. And I mean, what I started out doing, one person, I think it was now 20 in the office doing so, or 15 or so, and that final part of my jigsaw, I didn't feel like our boys were experienced enough to take that bit over from me. It's like your fifth child, okay? So you want to let it go really, really securely and safely. So we were at a FBA state conference here in Perth, and Carl and I, he never comes to anything with me usually on that level. He sends me on my own, or might come to some evening things. And he was with me, and this wonderful man called Bill Withers from Adapt spoke, and we just sat and looked at each other and were like, that's the missing piece. So we joined up with Bill. It took a little bit of time. There was a bit of friction with the boys. They weren't as, Bowden particularly was like, well, Mum, you just fall in love with consultants. This will be another one you fall in love with. And I'm like, no, this guy's different. He's got something very special to offer. Yeah. So that has worked extremely well. And we probably started with Bill maybe 2 years ago. We don't have a board, we have a stewardship team, and he heads our stewardship team. And the development of, well, the other critical bit of information there I'd love to share with people who might do something different. We had our wonderful children, and Bowden put his hand up. He was on a leadership course over in Melbourne. We were looking for a new CEO for me to be able to move away, and we ran that process for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks or something, and we had an agent, and anyway, I wasn't getting the people that I wanted. I just knew this is for me to move on, right? And he rang in the middle of the evening and said, look, I just really think I'm ready. I'm like, well, actually, I don't really think you are. I'm not sure you're old enough and tough enough. And so we talked about that, and he came home. We stopped the advertising campaign or to search for the person, and we took a gamble and decided we would back our son and at the time, our head finance person in the company, and who was not a family member. And we thought it was either going to go real good or real bad. And I can really proudly say, probably that's 3 years ago we started that process, and we definitely made the right choice. It's been absolutely fantastic. Those two lads together make such a wonderful, complete, they're just so different. Their skills are different, their gifts are different. So really, it's just a bit like Carl and I again. I feel, they really, Paul was able to, I feel, bring everything that Bowden lacked at that time. But you've got to fill the gaps in. I mean, these children were in the business working hard, and then you've got to sort of try and fill the pieces in.
There's a big part in this. You say, yes, they're two different personalities, two different people, but synergy is only part of it. Trust is the biggest piece. And the values that you have and your husband Carl have, that you've entrusted your children with, that level of trust and the connection with the staff and the employees, I believe is a very strong connection, and that is a big part of why it does work. So I say that as an acknowledgement, but I also see it as something that is a benefit to the business going forward. Now that Bowden is in there as a CEO, and you've just made an acquisition and the business is now growing, the plans for the next 2 years, are you still in the business?
No, so Carl, and thanks for that, because that's so true about trust. And I think that was my final part of Bill. I don't think I would have been able to have released my ability to trust them if we hadn't had Bill by our side to help us work through that. And I remember one meeting, we were just all getting locked into this place where no one wanted to be, and Bill used to talk about the stars, the sky. I mean, Sound on the Beach was the final one anyway. He goes, we get into the Sound on the Beach, it's not good. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to pull myself back. And he was, that's what I love about that man. He's so able to talk the languages for both of us. We've got these parents and these kids here, and he created a thing called a RFE, Request for Enhancement, and Carl and I listed, we had to go away and think about it, and the 10 most important things for us that were to be our RFEs, and we really thought long and hard about them, and then went into our system that we use, all of us. So, it's an electronic system that everyone can see and read, and we knew when we could satisfy all those RFEs, Carl and I would be ready to totally react, because we hadn't assessed correctly. Like, we thought we had moved out 3 years ago, but when we went through it, and he gave us this really beautiful picture. It was a real good picture. It was a rectangle, and just put a divider in the middle of it and said, you were up here and you and Carl had everything, and the children, or the successors were not the refounder. We actually call it founder and refounder. So the founders have got everything, the refounders were at 0. Come down to the bottom, founders are at 0, refounders are at 100%. But if you look back through that as you hand everything over, we hadn't handed over a lot of the different areas of our business properly, and so it would have actually ended up probably in huge disaster.
There are 3 parts that really need to transition in a family business. Responsibility is one big thing, authority is another one, and the last one is the ownership, those shares that will transition from one generation to the next in most cases. So, but in that there's the job ownership. I feel responsible for the people and the things that are under the process that I've run. So I can see that there's there's numerous things that you're transitioning, not just those 1, 2 or 3.
Just to relinquish my sole protection of the bank account. Like, that was probably only 4 years ago in the accounts area. Like, when you've the one that's managed all that, and we're an extremely profitable company. I remember a very wise man who I trust deeply said to me, and he's a very high executive in a large private company here in Perth, probably one of Australia's largest private companies. And he said, Jacinta, because he just discovered a big theft of theirs in one of their interstate branches, and he said, someone will be stealing from you right now. It'll be happening in your business, and it sat with me, and I thought, it's so true. There's all these things going on in there, and you can't control everything. And that's probably one of the things I had to really struggle with as we grew, because you don't have the systems and the processes to manage that. So then I have a financial controller who wants to have access to the bank account and sign off payments when I'm not around. So really my involvement now, today, currently, is if the lads have a transfer that's probably over $450,000 in one transfer, they need my ability to assist with that. Otherwise, they will ring me for a chat, not for any other need.
Mm-hmm. So we've had this great journey to today. The boys are now in this new place. Bowden, Paul, CEOs, your son, the other son, who's working hard in the business, and the next one's looking to join sometime soon. What would be some of the, say, 3 tips that you would give to a family in growth, in a growth phase in their family business?
The first thing I would say to them, and we did this, started doing this probably 8 to 10 years ago, was because their children were still living at home, remember. So as they started to move out of home, it became a little easier, but the sanctity of family always was going to be the very highest for Carl and I. Like, we would never put anything before our family. And in the way of consequence, or, obviously there's some challenges.
So
I'm happy
whatever's
to have
going to happen, family is number one.
So always keep that, like, we have a dinner once a week. We started many years ago, a family dinner, and at the family dinner, the rules were there was to be no discussions about the business, and then once a month you go and have a celebration somewhere else. So that's something that would be one of my definite tips, is to really honour your family.
Great.
Keep your family as family, because the business is definitely part of that family. Like I said earlier, it's like another child, and it's a challenge, and it will rip you apart, and it'll make you say things and do things probably that, I think as a parent. There's so many I could say, John, but tenacity. I think I look at and the ability to forgive. So for you to stay friends, particularly with my husband, to stay friends, you have to be able to, I don't know that you ever really switch off, but you have to practice doing that and be able to forgive. Things happen in a workplace that, when a husband comes home from work and his wife's been at some other different place working, you come in and ask about your day, and I imagine it's all, that's interesting or whatever. Well, for us, we had to switch it off and do all that challenging part at work, and then when we came home, Carl was mostly site and I was in the office. So I think respect, if I look at our values, I mean, they are about respect, courage, and giving a shit. How do I rank what's most important?
Well, I'm not asking you to rank importance here. It was just 3 tips. So one is separate business from work time. Husband and wife, family together, they are 2 different places.
Because the business will overrun the family, I think, if you...
Family
in the
first,
way we were running anyway, they were growing.
Is there a third one?
Family first. Well, I guess definitely the tips are to be where we are today. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, look, customers. Definitely has to be customer service. I think the focus on our customers and our people. So that's, I guess, when I say people, I extend it through to our staff. They are the priority. And next to your family, I think they're actually the next, definitely the greatest asset.
One of the great things from my experience of knowing you, Bowden, and the family, is I love the values that you carry through. And in the business, you articulate them so well because they are understandable, and it's not just a one-word statement. Would you like to share one or two?
Did you actually know our previous values that we... Did you ever see them on our website?
I never saw the original ones.
So when we were corporatising ourselves, which is that horrible word, but we thought we needed to be... I thought, when you saw these dowsings written on tender documentation, I thought that was like a weakness, not a strength. And it took me a little bit of time to accept that's actually a real strength, not a weakness, and to be proud of that. And our values back then were very, because our mission statement and our values were, they reflected us definitely, but I'm not sure they were really relatable for our staff, and probably, to be fair, not even to some of our customers. So one of the first things we did with Bill was we went back through and, really our values reflect the heart and soul of Carl and Jacinta Dowsing. That's the truth, because those values were all there, being lived every day, but probably not so necessarily up on a board, that we cared about while we were in the business. But it's when you step away from the business, and that's probably actually a tip, to be able to leave that, it's like a legacy really for us, and whether it's our children running our business or anybody else. It may not be our choice now, we're going to be passing of ownership, but those values, we know that what was at the core of us is actually there. And I wrote a little introduction in our values for our staff when we rolled out our new version, which are the ones you're referring to. And I'm so passionate about that because really, I think every one of our staff really get that. When we say, give a shit and celebrate your work. Carl would say to them daily on a site, look, you'll know, just stand back and look at it and you'll know if it's right or wrong, just think about it. If that was your house, how would you like it to look out the front? Yeah. That I said before, be courageous, have a crack. I think that's real testament to us and our children. It's not easy on kids when they come through. We just sacrifice a lot, Carl and I. We weren't probably present at a lot of things through their life. I think we tried really hard. I remember one night for Sam, our youngest son, he was in junior school. I think he was getting the Citizenship Award. He knew he was getting an award. And didn't know what it was. And Carl was being held up on a site. I think he's up north and he's in a truck. And he's like, Mum, is Dad coming? I'm like, yeah. He's not going to wear orange, is he? He's not going to wear bright orange. I'm pretty sure I'll go home and get changed, love. But things like that, he wouldn't have complained if his dad didn't get there, but it would have hurt him. It was a big moment for him. And I think that business need would have been out. We were pretty spent thin.
It stands very clearly to me the love that you have for your family and for the business and for your staff and for your customers. So I want to thank you really very much for coming along today and sharing with us your story, just parts of your story. I know there's a lot more to it. So thanks very much for coming in.
No, it's a privilege. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much for sharing with us today. And please come back to visit us, John Bruns, the Family Business Guy. And if you have some questions, always send an email through to john@johnbruns.com. and you can have a look at the website, www.johnbrooms.com. And if you'd like, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much.